The shifting sand in Faux Cap in the southern tip of Madagascar blankets everything. It's threatening livelihoods and burying homes and buildings. This was the police station. And this, the local government office, now so covered we're able to stand on its roof. The phenomenon known here as Tiumina, or red storm, has been dramatically changing this Indian Ocean coastline, ravaging crops and stifling development. The people here have been hit by a long drought, but also fierce winds, which often halt the fishing, which is one of the main sources of income. Henri Claude, the head of the village, hasn't been out on the water for more than a week now. Some of the brave or the desperate opt for other methods, but it can be dangerous and often fruitless. Henri Claude shows us the rows of sisal trees the villagers planted to try to restore this degraded land and rescue the ecosystem. It's a long-term strategy with the greenest of weapons. How worried are you that even more of the village is going to be buried in sand? Many of them are just plain scared, not just of the future, but the here and now. We're afraid of living here, he says, and many people are leaving. They're afraid of the invasion by the dunes, and we just can't get investment here. The violent winds blow off roofs and make a living that's already hard even harder. And there are signs many of the villagers have already abandoned their homes and been forced to move on. So they're turning to other ways to survive. And by the look of this market, Madagascar's forests are being plundered and sold at an alarming rate. The main thing that's being sold at this market is wood, with only 15% of the population with access to electricity. They've had to turn to chopping down trees just to generate their own fuel. They also make charcoal, which they then go on to sell, just to try to eke out a living every day. But all this has added to large-scale deforestation, with Madagascar losing 40% of its forests since the 1950s. We don't have anything to eat. We don't have anything to drink. We cut the wood because of the kere, he says. Kere is what the Malagasy call the drought that brings hunger. Cassie will be lucky if she sells any of her sweet potatoes. She'll maybe make 2,000 ariary, about $50, but she has 7 other children, as well as her baby. It's hard, she says. I'll spend half on water and half on rice for the baby. The others won't eat today. And right now, Madagascar is burning away its future to get through the present, racking up one of the highest rates of deforestation in any tropical country. That's put its ecosystem at risk, destroying its habitat and putting the vast range of unique wildlife it's home to in great danger. We spotted an extremely rare radiated tortoise out in the open and lifted it away from the road. It's critically endangered and only found here in the south of Madagascar, but it's being killed for its meat or captured by poachers at such a rate that conservationists warn it could disappear from the wild forever within 20 years. These creatures are now very much at risk because the situation is so critical in Madagascar that they fetch a huge price on the black market. And if any of these are smuggled to order, usually out to the Far Eastern markets, they can raise thousands and thousands of dollars. But if caught, you face a very stiff prison sentence. The people of this island are among the poorest in the world, yet the country has an abundance of natural riches, with more than 100 different species of lemur living in the wild, for instance. And the island so large, it's more than double the size of Britain, that there are different but equally serious problems across the nation, as we found when we travelled here into the forest on the eastern coast. This is a protected forest, but there are so many more areas of Madagascar which are being destroyed. It's incredible to think that there are hundreds and hundreds of species here in Madagascar that you will not find anywhere else in the world. And many conservationists believe that they are now in danger. Sinji's been travelling through this forest for 2 decades. He's never seen it so bad.
It's not good, the change. The change coming hot, high, hot, and dry. Dry. And the rain coming, if they come, rain too much, no stop, and flood everywhere.
The Malagasy government has so many tough challenges, and weaning its population off its dependence on coal and wood is just one of them. And right now, for so many here, raiding the nation's natural resources is seen as the only way to survive. Alex Crawford, Sky News in the Grand Sud region of Madagascar.
This sweeping landscape that stretches to the far mountains is not a continent, it's an island. At the dawn of geological time 150 million years ago, Gondwana, a supercontinent made up of Africa, America, and Antarctica, began to break apart. Madagascar separated from Africa and began to drift on the turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean. It was not until about 2,000 years ago that the first humans arrived. They were Indonesians who had used the monsoon winds to sail their outrigger canoes all the way to the shores of Madagascar. Down through the centuries, the identity of the Malgache people took shape and would be enriched by the contributions of Arab and Indian navigators. On board Le Ponant, we'll be following in the wake of the dhows and outriggers that sailed from Muscat, Zanzibar, and Bombay to discover the sea routes that led to Madagascar. Our voyage begins in Antsiranana, the land of salt in Malgache, though the town is still called Diego Suarez by its inhabitants. With its gridwork of streets lined with colonnade houses, the town could be a French provincial capital of the 1960s lost out in the tropics. The town was named after two navigators, Diego Diaz and Fernando Suarez, who discovered the bay en route to the Portuguese colonies of India. This bay is not only one of the largest in the world, along with the Bay of Rio de Janeiro, it is also one of the most sheltered.
Picture this bay that has 100 kilometers of shoreline and just one narrow inlet, 1 kilometer wide. That's what its name, Antumbuku, means, a hole in the earth with a little entrance. So from out at sea you can't see anything, you have to get close. You enter the channel, and that's when you catch sight of the bay.
Up until the 18th century, pirates used this bay as a base from which to attack the French and English ships returning from India. When the French colonized the island at the end of the 19th century, Diego Suarez became an important port, a gateway to the Indian Ocean where Comorans, Indo-Pakistanis, Yemeni, Somalis, and Chinese immigrated and mingled with the older Sakalava and Antankrana populations. That period has given Diego Suarez its present population, a cosmopolitan mosaic of different races, colors, and creeds. Diversity, but not a melting pot, for each ethnic group has remained strongly attached to its origins and traditions. So with all this in mind, just who are the true Malgache today?
Even today, it's hard to really say. We've come to the conclusion that those who live in Madagascar are Malgache. But let me tell you something. I was French. I had a French national ID card, and when the country became independent, I was studying in France. I could have stayed in France, but I liked being Malgache, and I came back to Madagascar. I exchanged my French ID card for my Malgache ID card, but I still kept my name, Kassam Ali. All we Malgache are like that. We want to be Malgache because God brought us to such a wonderful land.
Less than 100 kilometers from Diego Suarez is the Ankarana Special Reserve. It is a shining example of all the beauty and mystery of this land of Madagascar. This forest of limestone needles carved out by the rain 5 million years ago is called the Chingi.
It's a difficult journey, deep into the forest. There we find Isidore Moridello, but his machete isn't for cutting down vines or branches. It's a weapon, protecting his plantation against thieves looking for one thing: vanilla.
The problem has been going on for some time now. If we don't guard our vanilla, we will lose everything. We have to be vigilant so we don't get killed.
For months, farmers in Madagascar have been sleeping in their fields to guard their vines.
We sit in the cold at night. Sometimes we don't sleep in the hut because it's out in the forest. My husband was already attacked once. When he sleeps, I don't sleep. When I sleep, he stays awake.
At daybreak, we journeyed to Ambanizan, a coastal village at the edge of the forest. Many gardens are full of vanilla, each vine the result of the dedication and care of farmers like Leon and Orestin. The orchid flower that produces these pods only blooms for a matter of hours each year. When it does, it needs to be pollinated by hand. That's because the bee that naturally does it is only found in Mexico. But pollinating the flower is not the only mark that the farmers leave. Just on this vine here, there's more than $150 worth of vanilla. When these are dried, that's how much they'll sell for. They're so valuable that they've actually been branded. There's a name on here because they're trying to avoid theft. And the extraordinary safety measure is necessary. Last year, Leon's whole crop was snatched away in broad daylight.
I was working in the rice field when the vanilla was stolen. The thieves quickly took their chance to steal it. I was so sad. I cried because we lost everything. I didn't have money to send my children to school, and my family has been suffering all year.
And so, when thieves are caught, things often turn violent. There have been murders in nearby villages, something the chief of Ambanizan has been working to prevent.
When the thieves are caught, mob justice is dealt out to them. I fear that violence, because mob justice is not a good thing. So we protect the people's goods so they don't get stolen.
It's all the result of wild rises in the price of vanilla. The global price has gone up over 1,000% in 5 years. Dried pods are now more valuable than silver. But despite the thefts and violence, there have been many positives for the people of Madagascar. A lot of money has made it into the pockets of the farmers. Walking through the village, you get a real sense that things are really happening here. It's so vibrant. People are constructing houses with better materials. Kids are going to school. The profits from vanilla are really making a difference. There's even a word for it. Those who've made money are called vanillionaires, and their cash is transforming places like Ambanizan. Thanks to the sky-high vanilla prices, the villagers here have been able to buy this sawmill to process wood to build furniture and houses. And something a little grander too. Wow. It's a full-on construction site. I wonder what they're building. So what are you building here? Une maison?
Comme salle discothèque ici.
Oh, discotheque.
Yeah.
Ah.
Restaurant.
The money to build all of this has come from vanilla. But the person who owns it doesn't just grow vanilla, he trades it as well.
Farmers may be making money, but they still rely on middlemen to get their vanilla to consumers. That's where the big profits are made. Another journey, this time to Marwansetra. The market town is a hub for commissionaires.
The crazy beast of Madagascar. I'd like to welcome you both to our webinar and to our Facebook Live event. So hello to both audiences. We're so glad that you have found a way to interact with us this evening. The best way to interact with us is down in the chat. So let us know where you're watching from and who you are watching with. We are glad that you are here tonight. My name is Alyssa Carlson, and I am a program specialist at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And I am pleased to host this webinar. I am very excited that everyone is here, and I will be managing the logistics tonight. So tonight we are discussing one of the craziest finds, maybe the craziest find, down in Madagascar, and we are visiting with our paleontologist and our curator of paleontology, Dr. David Krause. And if you guys will be patient with me for just 1 minute, it looks like we are missing one of our panelists. So give us just 1 minute and we will get that sorted out. But go ahead, fill up that chat. Let us know where you're watching from, who you're watching with, what you're super excited for this evening. All right, I found our panelist and she will be joining in just a minute, which is great. All right. So again, please let us know where you're watching from in the chat. Let us know who you're watching with. And we are excited to be here with you this evening. As I said, my name is Alyssa Carlson. I'm a program specialist at the museum. We are excited to host a Q&A with Dr. Krause at the end of this event. So if you have any questions during the presentation, throw those in the chat. We will try very hard to answer as many of those questions as possible. And I see that Gabby has joined us, so I am going to turn it over to Gabby, our Vice President of Research and Collections at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. Thank you again for joining us, and Gabby, take it away.
Thank you, Eliza. This is just such a thrill. I've been seeing, all of the hundreds of participants that are joining us tonight. This is super exciting, especially because, first of all, like Eliza said, I'm the Vice President of the Science Division, but I'm also the Chief Curator at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. I want to thank you all for participating from all over the country. I see coming in. And, we're super excited because, it's just been, very difficult for all of us this time. But when we see members like you joining us from all over and, supporting our plans and our project, it makes us really special. And we really feel thrilled that, we're doing this for you. And tonight, we have an incredible surprise for you. And I was super honored that I was asked to introduce our speaker tonight. And I have to tell you a little story. Don't panic, I'm gonna be short, I promise you. But dear Dave, who many of you know, sent me his 49-page CV when he heard that I was introducing him. And, we got to love Dave. He's just incredible. But I'm going to spare you the 49 pages because I'm sure you can Google him and you will find even more accomplishments from more than that, 49 pages. Dave is our Senior Curator of Vertebrate Paleontology here at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. Dave joined us back in the spring of 2016 when he retired from Stony Brook University with, he's currently now Emeritus Distinguished Service Professor. So we're just thrilled that he decided to make Denver, actually Conifer, Colorado, his home, but that he decided to join the museum and his expertise. And, he really doesn't need introduction. So I'm going to spare you his CV, but I wanted to share with you some really cool stories that I have heard through the 2 years that I have had the pleasure of working with Dave. And, his career spans, gosh, I'm not even going to say Dave, but I was really impressed to see, and I can tell you that, the first publication that he did was in 1977, and he has continuously published